Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's January 22nd. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And really, today was a range day. You can see we moved sideways for the most part. It turns out there was two tiers. We started out in this tighter tier, but once we dropped down, of course, you always measure that and look for a possible measured move. And you can see we got, really to the tick there. And we ended up getting a little failed break lower, but notice how we failed above the highs for the several times too. Um, but that gave you a nice target here to reach on the way down. You didn't get a lot of opportunity to enter this, unfortunately, but if you did get in here, you at least had a clear target to shoot for, and that was a perfect target, really. We went a little lower, but you don't really want to ride this out. I don't like to anyway. Why take the chance that this thing's going to bounce at a measured move and go back to the upper side again? So um, I'm going to exit right down here a couple of ticks from this low. So unless it just keeps on going on through. Now, if it does like this and just keeps going, then maybe you start moving you might just tighten your stop and see if it'll continue to run. But uh, I'm not going to hang on through a bounce like this right here because there's too big a chance it turns back up again. So, but you can see clearly that we're going sideways here. The overnight, there was a gap on the overnight chart way down, or on the daily chart way down here, and you can see um, we eventually filled that and are bouncing off the low of this two-tier channel here. So it wouldn't surprise me if we bounce now. It wouldn't surprise me if we went lower. We're still above 3,300. We're still in relatively new all-time high territory. So it takes a little while usually to move through those 100 century levels on price levels. So, and we've been above 3,300 for a little while now. So, um, and we've actually moved on up there pretty high. So did we go higher yesterday? We were around 330 yesterday. We went a little bit higher today, even though we still closed uh, up for the day, although I wouldn't call that much. We almost closed even. This was the close from yesterday, and we closed right here today. So we closed up slightly. We're trading below that level now, though. So keep that in mind. But let me back up. We'll talk about the trades. Not a lot of them today. This was a fairly flat day. There's some nice trends in here, though, so you had a chance to make a little money, especially late in the afternoon, because this is pretty much a downtrend. Even though it is still a range and you still can trade this both ways, it's still more of a downtrend. This afternoon was a little clear. I really would have still considered this an uptrend in here because we traded up into this. So it didn't surprise me that we broke higher, but we couldn't sustain it and it turned. That was considered the market was a little overbought at that point. And you see, that's one of those failed break higher, and you see if you catch that, just like I talked about yesterday, look at that thing going. You didn't get a lower high really to enter this thing until way down here. I don't like entering here because it's right into the previous support, but then we finally get a little breakthrough and a double test and another chance to enter there. So um, anyway, let's start at the beginning here. 7 o'clock came on this big bar here. This was your signal bar, so you can't enter there, and you're just kind of waiting on something to happen, and then you get a first entry long and a second entry long. That's a relatively bearish bar. I marked it green. The only problem with this trade really is it's a lot of congestion there, although there's no dojis in there really. That's kind of a neutral bar and a neutral bar, but these are kind of up down bars. But notice how we made that high, and then we tested it once, we tested it twice, and even though I ended up putting the line here at this point, until we bounced here again, you might have been playing it down here. So you might look at this. Hey, if you've got enough room, you may take this trade. You probably couldn't get in this trade because it just gapped straight over, and you would have had to get in down here somewhere. I don't know if you could have got in that trade, but if you're set up a little better than that and you had enough room, you could take that trade It's a little bit aggressive as it is based on the congestion and being into the lows and so forth. So, but notice we break lower, fail, we come back, we get a first entry short, second entry short, right off the trend line, right off the EMA. It breaks lower first and goes, as soon as it breaks out there, I'd have a buy stop there. And you expecting prices to come back up here again. And notice we run up here, we get a close outside, test that high once, we test it twice, we test it a third time, plus we make a lower high. I'd just call that a triple top, really. If we'd have made another higher high here, you might have said wait, but we make a double top, so that's basically a lower high, and you've tested that 3 times. I like going short there. It does come back again and test it one more time, and it actually broke higher here and then turned down. This is just another double top and another lower high. Just go short right there. This one continues on. This would have been a nice entry right here. Could have ridden this down. I told somebody this else, or talked about this earlier in an email with somebody, but they asked me about runners, and usually on range days, I don't try to get runners unless it's a really wide trend and you're getting in off the highs or the lows. But generally, I like failed breakouts on a range like this if you get a setup, because that's where you get it, just like right here. Those turn out to be major lows and major highs. Notice this was really considered a failed break lower, and it turned out to be a major low at the time. And then this was definitely a failed break higher, and that turns out to be a major high. That turns out to be the high of the day. So we only went down from there. So I like those trades, so keep an eye on them. And this turns out to be a nice rundown right here. And then, of course, it bounced. You actually get a failed second entry short right there. But notice how we're still below the EMA. Look how bars are stacked up. There's no bodies in those really. They're just really indecisive bars that are struggling, especially to go higher. They're really bearish type bars. So if you went long right there, you got burned. But generally, your reversal needs to be on the other side. And so I'd be real leery of that one with those 1, 2, 3, 4 bars stacked up there, and 3 of them with no bodies, really indecisive kind of bars. And you never really get a chance to enter that one until up here. You get a little double. You try to go lower twice, but now you're right into the highs, and so you can't go long there. I'd wait and see if you don't get a short up. A short. Notice there is a lower high here. That's your first break. You don't quite have a new high. If you did try to enter that one, you were just a little bit too early. So notice over here you already had a close outside and then a lower high. Here, that's your first close outside, and so it may try to run back up that second attempt, and that's what it does here. And you may go short right here. Again, you generally want to wait on a lower high, but you do have your close outside, a new high, relatively bearish bar. What concerns me is when you get another inside bar with it that didn't break lower. You would expect prices to break lower, but I'll be honest with you, I'd probably risk being that far away from the EMA and this already having played out and prices being stuck below this pretty much all day. I'd probably risk that at that point. It's early in the, it's still earlier in the day. It's before 10 o'clock. So, and look at the opportunity you get here. And you really don't get a lower high until here. And then really you make that high, you try to go higher once, twice, and you really get a double test of that midline. So you may take that when you still got plenty of room. If we're going lower in equal distance, you got plenty of room too. So, of course, it does bounce down here. You get a little higher low here, but not a very good signal bar. You really don't get another chance to enter, and then it's kind of iffy about what's going on. There's a lower high right here, but that's the first break of that one, so I don't think I would take that either, being on that side of the EMA, because look what happened. It would have worked, but it breaks lower, comes back. And now you get a double top and a big bearish bar. Now's the time to go short. Still acts kind of choppy, but look what it does here. You make a lower high. I'm sorry, a lower low, lower high, lower low. There's a little higher high there, but you're still making lower lows. And this does turn back down. You probably wouldn't have had this midline yet unless you were really good at this. What I did was drew it off these lows across here. And even then, I wasn't sure if I had it right, and I just drug it up. So the average person probably wouldn't find this trend line. And I had to adjust it a little bit. I didn't have it just right either. You probably had to have this swing first, so you probably don't have any of this two-tier channel here yet. So keep that in mind. But we run down, we bounce. You get a double bottom. You touch the lower side here. You get a higher low. And if you didn't have this, this is just a failed break lower because you're really still playing this sideways too. So notice you got a failed break lower, a double bottom. So that's a higher low, still a long way from the EMA. I'm going to try to catch that in case I get a major low. And off it goes. Notice how you actually get a, even though it doesn't break lower here and here, notice what happens. You run up, you try to go short once, you run up through, you try to go short again. There's a hidden failed second entry short there. You got to think about it's into that midline if you're looking at that, if you've seen that. At this point, I'm more still playing this sideways, so I'm not too worried about that midline. I'm just looking for a reversal, and that looks like one. So it is a little bit, it's not a perfect one though, because a perfect one, you would have a break lower there and a break lower here, and you don't have that. So it does run up. You get a close outside, makes a high, and there's your lower high. It actually breaks lower, then turns and goes straight out the other side. I like going short there. There's a failed second entry long right here, but that's still all part of one move down. There hadn't really been much correction yet, so I'd wait. And it comes back here. Basically what I would do is treat this as a double top and then a first entry and a second entry. And treat that as your failed second entry long and go short right there if it breaks below, which it does. And that takes you in the 2 o'clock hour. Notice you come down here and you get a break of your trend line. That's your first break, and it is off the EMA there. It's just a first entry, and it's right there at 2 o'clock. It's one you might say, hey, you could be a little aggressive with, but I'd be real careful with that. If you did catch it, though, it turns out to be a great trade. Runs all the way back down to the other side of the trend channel there. And I would also measure this again, too, just in case. When it drops lower here, I'd keep measuring that. You can see we went a little further than that, but the main thing was once we started breaking lower than this, and it looks like the range isn't holding anymore, I'm looking this as my next target, which that's the close from yesterday. That would have been the gap on the chart today. Once we started trending down, it's pretty obvious we were trying to fill that. And they didn't quite fill it till the overnight started. So, but it's filled now. So, and that pretty much did it for today. But you can see that if you back out at a high level, most of the day we were just kind of going sideways. Even here, even though we dropped down into this lower half, we're still just working sideways there, up and down. So this was a range day. Early on, it had a upward bias. Late in the day, it had a downward bias. Or after late morning, I would say it had a downward bias. So anyway, I think that's going to do it. So I'm going to wrap it up. Trying to think if there's anything else that pertinent on this chart that might be. No, I don't really see anything else that's real pertinent on this chart. Just remember, it's mostly sideways. It does have a downward bias here. Draw these short-term trends. Once you start to get away, just remember though, once you start to get away from that EMA for a long time, you got to be careful of it. I like this one just because of the support resistance line. It's a double test on it. But generally, you want to, prices aren't going to stay away from that EMA very long, and they're going to come back to it. So just always keep that in mind. And that's why I like these failed breakouts when they're way away. Uh, but again, if you don't wait on a lower high here or a higher low here, you got to you got to wonder about it. Here you had a higher low. Up here you didn't get anything else. I still like that trade, and I'll tell you, I would take that trade. If I'm trading, I'm taking that trade. So um, anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. And believe it or not, tomorrow's Thursday. We're going to wrap up our week tomorrow. Uh, that holiday makes it a short week. So anyway, I will be back tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.